Greetings, it's Dragonfeather, and welcome back to the final week of 31 days of Samhain Dragons. That's one new Dragon Guardian to connect with every single day of October in honor of spooky season. Today, we will be covering the Samhain Dragon Kings of Calamity, the final Dragon Guardians. But before we get started, I did just want to give a quick disclaimer here that the final 3 dragons that I will be discussing in today's video are quite difficult, daunting, sometimes intimidating, scary, and even triggering to work with. So I would use your discernment before deciding to work with any of these dragons that I mentioned in today's video. But without further ado, let's just get started. For day 29, we'll be working with the demon dragons. Now this one, I know my friends, can seem very scary, and many of us don't even want to work with demons at all. And that is 110% completely understandable and valid. However, we work with the demon dragons to fully embrace the darkness within ourselves. A lot of us have a hard time looking at our shadows, and sometimes only scratching the surface and doing a little bit of shadow work isn't enough. Working with the demon dragons, we really get in touch with our inner demons, and we learn how and where and why they come from and come to manifest and even sometimes take over our lives. Working with the demon dragons, we learn how to reel those inner demons in and shift them to be on our side instead of our greatest enemies. We also work with the demon dragon to discover and honor our suppressed nature. A lot of us have parts of our nature that we would rather not understand, rather not look at, or rather not express because we may feel ashamed about it, or we may have been socialized to think that it's wrong, or we may have been raised to believe that it's nasty or impure or deplorable even. But that's why we work with the demon dragons, because they help us understand these suppressed natures about us and learn that in discovering the things that we suppress ourselves, by embracing those things too, we can truly liberate ourselves to a life of freedom. And one of the final things that we work with the demon dragons for is becoming comfortable with our deepest desires, and especially some of our darker ones too. Some of the things that we may desire in this life might make us uncomfortable, or might make us ashamed, or might even make us feel like we're wrong or dirty, or even, dare I say, sinners. But the truth is that having deep, dark desires is part of being a human being. And it's part of that experience and the spectrum of humanity, if you will, of the human experience, if you will, to also tap into those desires sometimes, to explore them and to see what it may bring. While I don't encourage to explore any dark desires for hurting people or hurting yourself, this is not what we encourage working with demon dragons. But when we work with demon dragons, it's about understanding the desires that we have that maybe others view as shameful for us, when in reality, it's just a part of being human. That's why if you're interested in connecting with the demon dragons a little bit more, I created a challenge for you within the Hatchling clan Amino. It's all about getting in touch with your suppressed nature, so you're able to explore and express your deepest desires in a healthy way. For day 30, we'll be working with death dragons, or more specifically, Grim, the Dragon of Death. Now this is a dragon guardian that is a little bit based off of the Grim Reaper, but there are dragons of death in general. For this particular exercise, I thought it would be best for us to work with Grim, the Dragon of Death, specifically because Grim is essentially the personification of the angel of death, or death itself. And in my personal practice as a draconian Wiccan, I personally have encountered the Grim Reaper only as a dragon of death. For this is just my personal experience walking the draconic path. However, if you in your particular practice have maybe never really worked with death before and you want to practice with dragons, this can be a great opportunity for you to try tapping into those energies. We obviously work with Grim, the Dragon of Death, to number 1, face our fear of death and understand our relationship to death. Death can be so scary and so triggering and traumatizing and even taboo to talk about for many of us. But the truth is that death is as natural as life, which is why we work with Grim, the Dragon of Death, to understand that this is simply a part of the cycle of life and nothing for us to fear, but simply something for us to understand, embrace, and work with in our lives. We also work with Grim, the Dragon of Death, to understand when it is necessary to call upon the power of death. The context I'm referring to this power is in when we have a loved one that is close to passing, or actively dying, or in the stage of dying, or in the final stages of life, we call upon Grim, the Dragon of Death, to grant them essentially peace from their suffering. And a personal experience of mine is when my cat Keisha passed away. She was a cat I had for 19 years. Many of you guys know her on this channel. She was the little black kitten that I grew up with. And when she was at death's door, I couldn't bear seeing her in pain anymore, and so I honestly made a request to Grimm, the Dragon of Death, to take her peacefully as an act of mercy. And sometimes calling upon death to bring death to those who are suffering in the end of their life is an act of mercy, and is one way that we can tap into the power of death as a great tool to help those of ours who are suffering deeply. And lastly, one of the ways that I mostly work with Grimm, the Dragon of Death, is to help stuck or trapped or past spirits move on to the other side. I don't know if any of you guys believe in ghosts or past spirits, if you will, or apparitions or anything like that, but I personally do. In my personal experience, I've had a lot of paranormal activity in my lifetime, and I, at first, when I was a kid, was really deeply disturbed and scared by these experiences, but as I've grown in my lifetime, I have personally learned how to hone these abilities and to gain control over these abilities, to where now when I do see dead people or I do talk to dead people, I simply help them pass to the other side. And I won't really talk too much about this on my channel, other than saying that yes, I do see and talk to dead people, and you guys can judge me however you'd like to. That's fair. It's just in my personal experience. I do work with Grimm, the Dragon of Death, to help me navigate those experiences that often can be jarring and very disturbing and deeply unsettling if you do not have the right tools to navigate them. However, when I feel like I am being approached by a spirit of a past human being or a past entity, I will simply call upon Grimm, the Dragon of Death, to help me handle those experiences, and since that practice, I have never had an issue, which is why I have created a challenge within the Hatchling clan Amino to get to know Grimm, the Dragon of Death, a little bit more by challenging your perception of death, getting to understand your fear of death, and how you can use the power of death to help those beyond the veil and to help those crossing to the other side of the veil within your life. And lastly, for day 31 on Samhain itself, we will be working with none other than the Samhain dragon. Now, the Samhain dragon is the dragon of the Sabbath of Samhain. With the help of my dragon guardians, I ended up over the years connecting with these different Sabbath dragons, if you will. And the first one we're getting to know is the Samhain dragon. We work with the Samhain dragon to honor, to help, and to harmonize any past spirits or any past loved ones. What does harmonizing a spirit mean? The best way that I can describe it is if you guys have seen The Legend of Korra season 2, where I forget the name of her uncle, but he uses water bending to essentially bend water in like a spiral around these angry spirits and then like raise light energy through this water, and it essentially like purified the spirit. That is what harmonizing a spirit essentially is. It's essentially alchemizing any negative energy that is stuck within a spirit to help them pass on to the other side of the veil, or to help them improve their spiritual experience, and also to help you elevate and, grow along your spiritual practice, and to help protect what is precious. To honor these spirits, it's a huge practice, not only with ancestor work, but also with any kind of maybe like friends that you have that are beyond the veil, family members that you have beyond the veil, pets that you have beyond the veil, and so on and so forth. It's a great way to help us learn how to connect with these spirits and feel one with them and feel at home with them. We also work with the Samhain dragon, of course, for divine protection from all unwanted evil or negative spirits within our home and heart during the Samhain spooky season. In my personal experience, the Samhain dragon often comes as a wispy purple dragon-like spirit with the head of a pumpkin and the horns of dead trees. This is just my personal experience with the Samhain dragon, but I'm sure that your experience is probably going to be completely different, and that is 100% valid. You might not even experience the Samhain dragon at all in the same way that I do, but that doesn't mean that your experience isn't as real as mine is. We also work with the Samhain dragon for setting new goals after we complete old ones. For this is the witch's new year. We work with the Samhain dragon to kind of get a report card on how our year went, and to kind of like brainstorm and see where we want our next year to go. The Samhain dragon is essentially a spiritual checkpoint, a guardian that we tap into to see where we really need to be focused on within our cycle of life, so we may stay in alignment with our purpose and harmonized with what makes us happy and feel whole and complete. Ever since I became a Draconic Wiccan, this has become a tradition in my personal practice, and maybe it could become a tradition in yours too, though it's definitely not required to practice this way to be a Draconic Wiccan. This is just my personal experience. But we work with the Samhain dragon in order to get visits from our past loved ones. and the Samhain dragon visits me every year, bringing my past loved ones. This is a very symbolic yet spiritual experience in the sense that my past loved ones are absolutely real spirits that visit me. Though some may argue that the Samhain dragon isn't essentially a real dragon, but essentially the draconic personification spirit of Samhain itself. Either way, we might not know the truth about the Samhain dragon, or any of the Samhain dragons we covered in today's video, or any of the other previous weeks. But what we do know about the Samhain dragon, and all of the Samhain dragons from 31 Days of Samhain, is that they are powerful protectors and honorable guardians that we can work with in exploring our experience along the craft while we are navigating not only Samhain, but any time of the year within our practice. You do not have to work with dragons in order to work with Samhain dragons. But that's why I created a challenge for you within the Hatchling clan Amino to connect with the Samhain dragon by making space to honor and help harmonize some of the spirits that may be lost to the Samhain, and also the dark months of the year. For sometimes these spirits don't wander just around Samhain, they wander around all of the dark times of the year, even at night in the brightest of summer months. The point is, we work with the Samhain dragon in order to understand how we can better our relationship not only with spirits beyond the veil, but especially with our ancestors. This isn't the only dragon to work with to connect with your ancestors, but it's a unique one to work with during this time of year to not only gain visits from your ancestors, but also to just have a good celebration with them along the way. I'm not sure if you guys get visits from your past loved ones during Samhain, but that's one of my favorite parts of Samhain, is honoring not only my ancestors, but my past loved ones, as there are many. Unfortunately, I've lost a lot of people in this lifetime, and that's why every time the Samhain dragon comes to visit me during All Hallows Eve, I have a wonderful, wonderful group of loved ones to look forward to, hearing wonderful stories from, receiving messages, and lots of love and encouragement, and I'm trying not to cry. But what I will say is that the Samhain dragon has really helped me process my grief, which I think is the last thing that the Samhain dragon wants me to talk to you guys about candidly. In the world that we live in today, it's really easy to lose things. It's easy to lose ourselves, it's easy to lose loved ones, it's easy to lose opportunities and dreams and items and possessions and health and wellness and all of that. And going through so much loss in my lifetime, it has been the Samhain dragon that has helped me process my grief, that has been there for me with a cheeky little smile on his stupid little pumpkin face. Remind me to always smile, that there's always joy to be found within grieving your loved ones. My final message to you hatchlings for the 31 Days of Samhain is to not be afraid to cry, is to not be afraid to embrace your shadowy emotions that others might consider shameful or taboo or like negative or something that you shouldn't express, because you're allowed to cry, you're allowed to be angry, you're allowed to have rage, you're allowed to hate, you're allowed to be apathetic, you're allowed to be depressed, you're allowed to be anxious, you're allowed to feel vengeance and envy, you're allowed to be jealous. There's a space for all of these emotions. We work with the Samhain dragons to better experience and express and understand these emotions. And that's why you don't have to be a draconic witch to work with any of the Samhain dragons, or perhaps any of the Samhain dragons that you discover that I may not have been able to cover in 31 Days of Samhain Dragon for this year's festival. And all I have to say is that if you guys weren't incredibly important, you guys wouldn't be walking this earth with me here today. And that's mostly what the Samhain dragons have reminded me more than anything, is that it is such an honor, a gift, and a blessing to be alive. And while it's so scary to process death and dying and decay and destruction and all of the shadowy aspects of living, what's even more important is when we do so, we realize just how bright, beautiful, and brilliant it is to be alive today. Thank you guys so much for watching the 31 Days of Samhain Dragons. I'd like to give a special thank you to Riley from Starstorm Studios for creating all of the 31 Days of Samhain Dragon art, not only the thumbnail for this video, but also the clan icon and the amazing intro animation of this YouTube video and all of the 31 Days of Samhain videos if you haven't seen all of them yet. If you'd like your own custom commissioned art piece, don't forget to check out Riley via Instagram, linked down below, and send her a message to get your custom piece started today. But the fun doesn't end there for 31 Days of Samhain. For the rest of November, the hatchlings and I will be discussing our experiences, our challenges, and our encounters with 31 Samhain dragons for the rest of the autumn season. If you're interested in connecting with the 31 Samhain dragons with us, even though it's not October anymore, you're more than welcome to join us in the Discord server linked down below. Wait, there's more! So don't forget to check out my TikTok if you're interested in learning more in depth about each of the 31 Samhain Samhain dragons I covered in 31 Days of Samhain Dragons. I will be covering each dragon individually in its own special TikTok because I wasn't able to cover everything about every dragon in today's video. So if you want to learn more about one or two of them, go check out my TikTok and see all of the in-depth deep dives on the Samhain dragons. And of course, don't forget to check out all of the ritual challenges within the Hatchling clan amino that I've created for you just to connect with each individual 31 Samhain dragons from this year's 31 Days of Samhain Dragons. And if you're new here, merry meet. My name is AZURA Dragonfeather. I've been working with dragons for 20 plus years, and this year, in honor of the Year of the Dragon, I bring you 31 Days of Samhain Dragons. That's 31 different dragon guardians for you to meet every single day of October in honor of spooky season. So if you'd like to learn more about dragons, don't forget to check out more of my YouTube videos, my Discord server, and my amino community that I've created for you just to learn about dragons. Oh yeah, and did I mention that it's free because everyone deserves dragons? I can't wait to hear what your experience was like connecting with any of the 31 Samhain dragons from this year's 31 Day of Samhain Dragons within the Hatchling clan. But until next time, stay geeky, cheeky, and freaky. Geeky, cheeky, and freaky, freaky, geeky, cheeky, and freaky little hatchlings. But until next time, blessed be and bye. Oh my god! See you in the Discord!